So, Charlotte, welcome to our podcast, Solve the Overeating Puzzle. I am really excited to have you here. And I'm really looking forward to having our conversation about your personal story, your relationship with food, and what happened in the past. You are one of our coaches for working at Unlox'U. And I think it would be really, really great for all the listeners and those who are watching this video to really learn more about you and show, we all go through so many difficult situations in life. And yeah, I would love to hear more about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to be here and excited to be a part of the Unlox'U team.
Oh, yeah.
So my health journey really began in my early 20s. So I went on a European exchange, and after excessive binge drinking, binge eating, junk food diet, as you do when you're on a uni exchange, I ended up gaining like 15 to 20 kilos, somewhere in that ballpark. And I just remember returning home feeling so mortified and embarrassed about the weight gain, because like prior to that, I held, I guess, the identity of being skinny. Like I could eat food without it really impacting my weight. And I didn't realize how much of my self-worth and self-esteem was caught up in that skinny identity until I kind of lost that. And up until that point, I had no understanding of nutrition. I didn't know how my body worked. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I didn't really know any health principles. Like I remember I ate a packet of biscuits for lunch or lollipop for morning tea. I was just all over the shop. So yeah, I remember returning home from the exchange, and as a bit of a high achiever at that time, I wanted to take massive action and lose the weight ASAP. So I went on a extreme restrictive diet full of punishing exercise and counting calories on like Fitness Pal or whatever it was, as that's the only solution I really knew about it. And it's the one that I guess we've all heard in like media. And I became very fixated on that goal of weight loss. I was constantly thinking and stressing about food and trying to control my environment to limit all temptations. And I stopped socializing a lot because I was like, well, there could be food there, better not go to that event. And after about 6 to 9 months or something, I did successfully lose all the weight. But the elation of the weight loss was quickly replaced by fear, as I was just so afraid of regaining the weight. And I felt so trapped by being in this restrictive diet, which was basically fueled by guilt and self-loathing. And I still didn't love my body, and I didn't have a healthy relationship with food, even though I'd supposedly reached my ideal goal weight. So not surprisingly, that kind of all came undone with a bit of life pressure. At the time, I was living in Italy with my then Italian boyfriend. So I ended up breaking up with him, leaving Italy, returning to Australia, quitting a master I was studying, and my family's business went like bust all in the same month. So I went spiraling right back down. And I turned to food as a comfort and a soother at that time, and I guess a bit of a source of love, and began binge and emotional eating quite a lot at that time. And as you can imagine, all of the weight returned. And worst of all, my mental health just like plummeted. I like to say this was my rock bottom moment, and that everything has been uphill from there. At that stage, I did not have any energy or motivation or any ounce of desire to go on another diet. So I started to look for solutions on Google and YouTube, just Googling around, watching YouTube videos, trying to like piece this health puzzle together myself. And I stumbled across a book called The Slow Down Diet by Mark David. And after reading that, it was so eye-opening, and it changed the way I saw food and eating. And it wasn't just about what you're supposed to eat. It was also like how you do eating. And it went into the psychology of eating, which I didn't even know was a thing. And at that end of that book, there was an invitation to study in Mark's certification program, which for me, it was like, yes, take my money, here's my money, please, I need to be in this program. So I studied a coaching certificate in mind-body eating at the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, which is quite the mouthful, at the end of 2019, 2020, which combined dynamic eating psychology with mind-body nutrition. And when I first enrolled, it was basically for me. I wanted to heal my relationship with food. Like, I wanted to overcome binge and emotional eating for me and lose weight sustainably and just learn how my body worked and learn about nutrition. But after studying at the Institute and really embodying the teachings, I became really, really, really inspired to share this with other people and actually step into that role of being an eating psychology coach, because the teachings changed my life. So I knew like they could change other people's lives. And since then, I've been working one-on-one with clients to support them on their own health journey and navigate through their own health challenges and heal their relationship with food and body, and really just get to the root cause of what their binge eating and emotional eating challenge is all about, which takes us in so many different directions. Every client is different and every client has a different relationship with food. And as you said at the start, now I'm lucky enough to join the Unlox'U team and be a part of a bigger community, which is really fun. So yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Such a long and big journey. I want to cycle back a little bit. Really something fascinating what you said there. I was eating whatever I was eating. Sometimes it was biscuits or for lunch, and it didn't kind of bother me, right?
Yeah.
While yes, I guess we don't see it as a balanced diet and a good diet, and yet it didn't really bother you. Dieting or weight or your body seems like wasn't really a topic for you. It was not until you and also your weight wasn't really a topic for you. It was not until you went actually, like, you consciously decided, I want to lose weight, then that fear of food started coming up for you.
Yeah. I guess for me, I was pretty skinny and naturally thin. So I kind of scaved through, like I could eat whatever I wanted without it affecting my body, even though I probably had, well, I did have terrible acne, I had low energy, I had all of these other symptoms, but usually it's the weight that grabs us until we start seeing like weight gain. Then it's like, oh, I better take action. I better start, thinking about food more. But it's like the other smaller, which are bigger, symptoms, we kind of just put aside. And because of like the societal narrative of like weight gain is bad, like as soon as you gain weight, that's when things are like, you've got to take action. And so that was pretty much what happened to me. It wasn't until like the weight gain started that I was like, oh, I got to look at my relationship with food. Like prior to that, I think I just ate food, didn't think about it, never felt guilty. It wasn't a great relationship with food, but it wasn't something I like consumed all of my energy.
Yeah. It was really interesting what you're saying there. I was reading or listening to a podcast just actually the other day, and they brought up the topic, which made me really think. Let's say there are two people, and one person might look from the outside as what we classify as that healthy person, right? Like a person who lives in a smaller body. And this person, we might look at that person and think, okay, she is slim or they are slim, therefore they are healthy. Even though we don't know their bloods, we don't know their, let's say if it's a woman, for example, right? If how her period is, we don't know her hormones, we don't know any of those things, because obviously quite often that is not shared with public, and we don't really need to know it either. I think. And then let's say there is someone else who might not fit into that ideal as what we see in the Western world. However, maybe their bloods are actually healthy and all their data is really healthy in the background. But this person might actually experience challenges from the outside because of that bias that the society puts on that person.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that big health at any size movement going on right now, which is so amazing. And just what you were saying before, like I was in a group of friends and we had what maybe society deemed a bigger size friend, but she was the healthiest of all of us. She was into eating healthy meals. I remember she brought salads to us to school. She was exercising. She was like, had an amazing body image. She was just so confident. And the smaller people in the group, we didn't have a great body image at all. And we were eating candy. And yet from the outside, like you just said, we may have been deemed healthier looking, which is, yes.
Yeah, I think makes us all kind of question, right, all our own beliefs about body image and body size, and actually even looking into what is actually healthy, right? You've just brought that word out. We looked like, or she was healthy. It seems like she was healthy and we didn't, and our relationship wasn't as healthy. So I guess that's where we need to, and each of us really need to look into what is healthy. So even like, let's say eating a piece of cake. Yes, maybe we don't get as many nutrients by eating that piece of cake as we would have if we have like a green salad. But at the same time, it can be very nurturing and nourishing for the soul and that connection with people. And sometimes eating that piece of cake is actually much, much healthier for everything else, right? For your soul, for that psychology, and apart from the nutrients that we're eating.
Yep, definitely. Yes. Because there's a difference between eating the piece of cake with a state of guilt and like, oh, I shouldn't be eating this, oh my gosh, and like just like trying to eat really fast because you're feeling guilty and shameful, versus just slowing down and enjoying every bite and just like getting the maximum pleasure from that cake, which is something I used to do prior to dieting. It was like when I used to eat cake as a child, I never thought about it. I was like, this is an amazing cake. I love this. And then I went into that dieting world and it was like, oh no, I shouldn't be eating this. And then, oh no, like the calories, it's same piece of cake, completely different. Like that's what I learned at the Institute for Psychology of Eating. It's not just like what you're eating, it is that how are you engaging with food? What is your mindset when you are eating?
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes that pleasure away from that cake, right? I can imagine, and obviously been there myself in the past, when I'm so preoccupied with feeling guilt and overthinking and counting calories in my head while I'm eating that cake, I don't even notice that I'm eating it.
Yep.
Right. I kind of miss out on actually really tasting it and enjoying it as well. So you said you started studying and really learned a lot about relationship with food, and also really understanding that there is not only what we eat, but also how and when and why, particularly why we eat, who we are as an eater as well, that we really have to consider that person who is actually eating, because everyone is, like I said, is very different. So what are some of the practical ways that help you to overcome binge eating?
Yep. So one of the biggest practical ways to overcome binge eating for me was slow and relaxed eating, which we kind of just touched on with the cake. And this was something that was reinforced time and time again during my certificate, to slow down when you eat, because eating fast is a stressor to the body, and it turns on the sympathetic nervous system, the stress response. And that shuts down digestion, making it very difficult to assimilate all the nutrients from the food that you're eating. So something Mark used to say in the program is, you could eat the healthiest meal in the world, whether that's a salad or a curry or something. But if you're eating under stress and you're just rushing through that meal, you're not going to get all the nutrients from that meal. And eating fast also leads to like heartburn and gas and digestive pains, and could leave you feeling fatigued after the meal. So slow eating is really important. Also because the experts say that it can take up to 20 minutes for our body to realize it's full. So if you're rushing through your meal and you eat the meal in 5 to 10 minutes flat, your body doesn't have enough time to register the food that you've eaten. So it may still think you're hungry, and then you go and eat a second helping, and then before you know it, you're now uncomfortably full. So to help you relax and slow down when you eat, something that I use is conscious breathing, just taking 5 to 10 breaths before I'm about to eat. And sometimes saying a little gratitude prayer for the meal in front of me, because it helps me be really present. And as a heads up, slow eating sounds very simple, but it's actually quite hard because we're habitually fast eaters, because we grew up in a society that is very on the go, very fast, rewards productivity. So it's like, just get the meal done, get stuff done and get it off your plate and move on to the next thing. So slow eating is like a reclamation. Yeah. And we actually need oxygen to break down foods. So by breathing while you're eating, which many of us don't actually do, it can really help you digest and assimilate the foods. Yeah. A second practical tip that I used is creating an eating schedule in sync with the sun. So something I learned that maybe I should have known is that we have a biocircadian rhythm that is attuned to be in rhythm with the sun. So our body is designed to optimally assimilate calories during daylight hours, when we have the most metabolic power. So a shift I made was eating the bulk of my calories in the first 2/3 of the day when the sun is strongest in the sky. As prior to that, I was skipping breakfast and eating the most of my meals in the later half of the day. And I also learned that skipping breakfast slows down metabolism, stores fat, it doesn't help you build muscle, and your body thinks you're entering starvation, so that turns on the stress response, which shuts down digestion. So now I make sure I start the day with a nourishing, healthy, macro-balanced breakfast, which for me looks like avocado and eggs on rice crackers. And I know many people of my clients in the past have said, well, I'm just not a breakfast person. And a lot of the time it's because, of course, you're eating the bulk of your calories late at night. So when you wake up, you're not hungry. So that's a bit of a vicious cycle.
And I think also quite often what I see with clients is they say, I'm not really hungry, and yet they have 2 cups of coffee in the morning, which is what we know is an appetite suppressor. Mm-hmm. So if I have 2 cups of coffee in the morning, of course I'm not going to be hungry because my appetite has been suppressed, but it doesn't mean that my body doesn't need it. And also, like what you said there, we will be catching up on it later on, because at the end of the day, our body needs a certain amount of calories, and it will try to get what it needs at some point. And unfortunately, that's kind of how also binge eating sometimes happens as well. We're missing out on those meals, and not only at breakfast, but for some people, really, unfortunately, also lunch and later in the day, and they end up eating more calories late at night.
Yep, absolutely. And something I didn't realize is that the exact same meal eaten at lunch and dinner is not digested in the same way, because eating it late at night, it places more of a caloric load on our body because we're not optimally designed to eat that much food late at night. So when people start counting calories, many of them don't consider at what time they're eating those meals, because they will be completely digested differently by the body. So now, after learning that, I decided to have a smaller dinner about 3 to 4 hours before bedtime, so that my body could digest it before it goes to bed. Because if we have a big meal late at night, we could have a terrible night's sleep, because all of the energy that was meant for tissue repair and body maintenance now is being redirected into trying to digest your meal. The third practical piece would be eating macro-balanced meals, which I know you talk about a lot in your program, the Rewired to Eat program. So just touch on it quickly. I didn't even realize I was deficient in my macros. I was not eating enough proteins and fats, which many of us are, because there's that narrative out there that fat equals fat on the body, which is a complete myth. So I found when I started including more essential fatty acids, healthy fats during the day, I felt fuller for longer, and it kind of curbed a lot of those sugar cravings I was having. So I introduced a lot more avocados, nuts, olive oil, yogurt, which was really great. Do you have any
Yeah,
point on that?
absolutely. A balance. I mean, like you're saying, I talk about balanced diet all the time. And while it is a basic concept, and I think a lot of the time people are really looking for something more sophisticated. There must be like a trick, or there must be something that I don't know about what other people do. And yet I think it's really coming back to the basics. We all need, and this is what our bodies are designed to digest: carbohydrates, fats, and protein. This is what our body knows, because this is what exists in nature. Everything else, all the processed foods with all the additives and colors and whatever else is there, our body doesn't know what it is, so it doesn't digest it. But also, obviously, having your balanced meals here, so adding carbohydrates, protein, and fat. That way we're also making sure that our blood sugar is stable. Eating regular, right? So every 3 to 4 hours, again, we're stabilizing our blood sugar, which helps with energy levels, which helps with any food cravings. We're making sure that our blood sugar doesn't drop, and which helps then, with particularly sugar craving, or usually it's also the high calorie dense foods and highly palatable foods, the cravings as well. It's really nothing complicated. Coming back to those basics and really making sure that we have protein, fat, particularly in every meal, and like I said, 3 to 4 hours, and you will notice all the cravings are just going. And then we need to look into the psychological of obviously into the why, right? Why am I eating? But I always say food is the first thing that we need to cover, and then we go into the psychological.
Yep. What you touched on before about we're always looking for a complicated solution, and like the next great protein like powder I should be eating, or like the fancy supplements I should be taking, even though we haven't got those basic fundamental structures in place. So that was getting that right was a big game changer for me. And the next point would be meal prepping, which I know all the listeners have heard time and time again. Oh yes, okay, I need to meal prep. But I really encourage you to meal prep, because once I started carving out a few hours or less on the weekend or during the week to meal prep, either like a big serve of something like a curry or a stir fry, or just meal prep different food groups, like cooking up a pot of quinoa or roasting some veggies or boiling up a dozen eggs. It was so helpful, because I found if the healthy food is not in the fridge when it comes time to lunch and dinner, you are less likely to eat that healthy food, and you'll just grab whatever you can find and try and throw something together, which may not always be the most nutritious choice. And meal prepping is also a game changer for me, because I do not like cooking, and I do not want to be spending hours in the kitchen every night trying to think of some meal to put together. So for me, when I meal prep, I listen to a podcast, audiobook, call a friend, or listen to music to just try and make it a fun experience to do.
Yeah, so combining the pleasure with with things that we have to do, right? With practical things, yes. So how do you do meal prep? Do you cook then once a week for the rest of the week, or how do you do that?
I meal prep twice. So once on a Sunday, I cook up a big pot of something, either that's curry for me. So I put a lot of vegetables in like a curry pot with coconut milk, which is a great healthy fat, and then either with a chicken or a beef or some kind of meat. And I use different flavors every week to kind of keep that going. And then sometimes on the side, I'm cooking up some quinoa, some buckwheat, some kind of carb alongside that. And then I might meal prep again during the week and roast a whole lot of vegetables so that I'm eating vegetables in a different way. Because sometimes if we always boil the vegetables, it becomes boring. So we got to try, okay, can we bake them? Can we fry it? Can we do something different? And I either have like a piece of salmon or a piece of meat, or just try and have something different. And then breakfast, there's no meal prepping for me, because I do boil up a dozen eggs every weekend. So then as soon as I go and eat breakfast, I've got my boiled eggs there, and then avocado, boiled eggs, done. What about you?
Yeah. I actually, by the way, eat the same breakfast, which is really interesting. Yeah. Avocado, eggs on rice crackers. That's exactly my breakfast at the moment. And it works really well. It really keeps me satisfied for a good 2-3 hours until I'm ready for my little snack. My food preparation is slightly different. The way we do it, we cook once a day, and that's usually at nighttime in the evening. And we are usually thinking ahead, and I usually think in food groups, which similar to you, what is going to be my protein for tomorrow. And I would usually either prepare some form of meat or tofu. I really enjoy tofu. Usually we usually boil eggs as well for next day, or at least 2 days ahead as well. And then usually thinking about what are going to be my vegetables tomorrow. So do I fry them like you're saying, or do I make like a stir fry? Do I prepare a salad? Something like that. And then carbohydrates, I usually, cook carbohydrates really for a few days ahead. And quite often it is actually going to be my oven vegetables, kumara, pumpkin, potatoes, if we have some potatoes. And usually that lasts me really good for 4 days. And my carbohydrates are sorted. I am a very lazy cook as well. I do not want to cook, and I keep it absolutely basic. And one of the basics, and I think it can't go more basic than that. That's something that I am sharing with clients regularly. I would grab a whole chicken, put that into the oven, and then I grab kumara. So for people who are outside of New Zealand, it's basically sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
Right. Sweet potatoes. I just wash them. I don't even peel them. I just cut them in half, and I put them beside the chicken in the oven. Why? Because it actually turns out just absolutely amazing. It softens. So and I just scrape it out with a spoon afterwards. I do not need to even peel it. And then my chicken is cooked, and I didn't need to do anything apart from washing chicken and washing potato, like the sweet potatoes or whatever I have, put some seasoning on top of it, done. So that's as far as I can go with lazy cooking.
I love it. Gotta try it myself.
It works.
Yeah. Awesome. The next practical piece is just getting a good night's sleep. It's again something so simple, and it's not complicated, but it's so necessary. I'm sure we've all had an experience of how shitty we feel after a bad night's sleep, and how much more food we crave or we need to eat, or sugary drinks or caffeinated drinks we need just to keep awake and energized from having a bad night's sleep. So once I started to prioritize my sleep and actually go to bed earlier, like 9:30, 10, I noticed such a big difference on my energy levels, and I had less brain fog, I was less stressed. And the piece for me was a quality night's sleep is created by a quality bedtime routine. So I turn off electronic devices at least 30 minutes before bedtime. That's my phone on airplane mode. That's shutting off my laptop, putting that away, dimming the lights, or turning on more of like a warmer, soft light, applying like lavender to my arm and my neck, either doing some simple breathing exercises or slowly stretching, or even just reading a few pages of my book. And that half an hour wind down routine really sets me up for like a really nice, beautiful sleep. And I need 8 hours at least to function, in which I know you were saying you love your sleep as well.
I need 9 hours. And usually if I get even 7.5, I will suffer during the day. I need minimum of 8, between 8 and 9. It's good. That's where I'm killing it.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually interesting about sleep. So I have been looking into sleep recently. and started using my watch, my Fitbit watch, to observe my sleep. And something that I've realized, the earlier I go to sleep, the more deep sleep I get, and the higher is my rating for my sleep. I am getting a bit competitive there with my rating, something I'm noticing. But what I've noticed as I'm observing every day, the chart, I guess, how my sleep was, I noticed that my deep sleep starts when I go to sleep until about 2 or 3, usually 3 a.m. Yeah. So that means if I go to sleep later, I miss actually out on that deep sleep, and I don't get that past 3 o'clock. Really, I do. Most of the time, that's where the body starts waking up. And actually, when I started looking into it, it makes sense, because that's when the body starts releasing already cortisol slightly. So we are naturally then waking up. So to really get the most out of our sleep, we should be going to sleep around 9:30, 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, as they say, is the latest. I find even 9:30 seems to be working really, really well for me.
Yeah. So I know that a question someone may have, which is what I used to say, is like, how do you get your partner on board to an earlier bedtime routine? I know for me, it was like a conversation, like, can we please go to bed earlier? It will really benefit both of us. So it would be, it means a lot to me if we can go to bed earlier, because I know a lot of people have partners out there that maybe like they want to go to bed at 11 and you want to go to bed at 9, and there's a bit of a give or take situation. So how did you get your partner on board?
Wow, actually, you're asking me a question I've never ever shared with anyone about our arrangements, and I knew that there will be a time where I will need to share our arrangement.
Don't have to.
We actually don't sleep together in the same bed, and we don't sleep together in the same room, because we have very different, I guess, rhythms when it comes to bedtime. And he usually goes to bed at 2 a.m. in the morning, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 a.m. in the morning. That's why I'm telling him off, actually, but usually 2, 3 o'clock. And that would just not work for me. He can go without sleep. Like, he can go, let's say, by just only 5 hours sleep, and he's functioning fine, where for me, it wouldn't work. And I really don't get interrupted in my sleep either. So I'm quite protective of my sleep. So that's why we have different rooms. And I must say, people usually then ask me, really, that's like old people do when they no longer like each other anymore? And I say, actually, it works really, really well. It doesn't affect our relationship. It doesn't affect our intimacy. It doesn't affect anything other than I'm a happy person during the day because I had my sleep.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
If I had more rooms, I may actually create the same thing. Yeah. Like you're saying, it probably positively impacts it. Again, going back to, if you have a bad night's sleep, you're not a great person the next day. And then you spill that onto the people around you. So prioritizing your sleep is so important. And yes, maybe taking extreme measures like you've done, or taking whatever measures you can within your situation. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
The last practical piece, there's so many, but that's the last one I'll share, is choosing a movement you love to do. So many people ask me, like, what's the best exercise? And I like to say the best kind of exercise or movement is the one you love doing and the one you will do consistently. Because many people, including myself back in the day, fell into the trap of choosing a form of exercise based on the amount of calories they think it will burn. Like, maybe that's like HIIT or the gym. They choose that because, oh, that's the one that burns the most, but they don't like doing it. So then they don't do it that often, or they give up and say, exercise isn't for me. Like, I know for myself, I used to do a lot of Pilates, which is a great one, but I was doing it because I thought it burned calories. So the reason behind was not the healthiest one. So after I gave myself permission to just choose an exercise I love doing, regardless of how many calories it burnt, I became very consistent with exercise. And for me, that is walking, just walking. Very simple. Again, there's nothing complicated about it. And yeah, I now do not miss a day of walking in the afternoon, and I listen to a podcast while doing it. So if you're still kind of choosing exercise based on the amount of calories it may or may not burn, I'd suggest just experimenting with finding a movement that you actually love. Dancing, walking, cycling, skipping, whatever. What's your go-to?
My go-to walking actually at the moment, but I also go through phases where there was a time where I loved the gym and the weights, and then I did a lot of yoga for many years and was teaching yoga as well. I danced for many years, so especially when I was competing and performing, we practiced sometimes 5 to 6 times a week. So that was kind of enough for me, but I also actually did go to the gym at the same time. And at the moment, I think I'm more in the sort of slowing down phase of my life. So walking every day, I am really using my Fitbit watch at the moment. So getting my 10,000 steps seems like really encouraging me to get up and get that accidental movement. So going to the kitchen or actually walking to the supermarket instead of getting a car, like taking the car. So I'm walking at the moment seems like it's the priority.
Yep.
Yeah.
That.
Did you have any sort of unexpected ways that have helped you to overcome binge eating? Anything you haven't mentioned?
Freestyle dancing was a big one for me. By freestyle dancing, I simply mean putting on a great song and just allowing my body to move, shake, and dance in whatever way it wants to for about 15 minutes a day. And this is something I still practice daily. And the reason it's so powerful is that it's just so fun and playful, which we often miss in our lives as we get older. And sometimes, maybe myself included, is we try and find that fun and playfulness by turning to food, and we eat fun foods. So dancing for me filled that void in a really healthy way. And dancing also just releases stress and tension from the body. Like at the end of the day, just shake it all out. I know, I can't remember, I listened to a podcast once and they say that we don't complete a lot of our stress cycles. So by dancing and shaking, we kind of complete that stress cycle and kind of get it out of the body, because so much stress and tension gets trapped in the body and we need to release that. And it kind of helped me a lot with binge eating because it helped me connect with my body and actually feel the feelings of my body and the sensations, which created body awareness, so that when I was eating, I could start to feel when I was full. And I could start to feel what foods felt good in my body and what foods didn't sit well in my body. So it really created a whole lot of body awareness, which we're kind of missing when we turn to like binge and emotional eating. We kind of override our body's messages and our body signals to stop. So
it's creating that connection with your own body, right? Instead of like, obviously when we binge, we're trying not to connect with it because I don't even know if we're connected at all with anything. Usually it's numbing everything, any emotions, any feelings, any sensations in our body. It's just only kind of we focus so much on eating that food. So that really makes sense. And also what we know about dancing, and I think that's why I just personally always loved dancing and still do, it releases dopamine and endorphins, right? So it naturally just makes us feel so good, where when it comes to binge eating, quite often the reason why we do that is because we're eating it to change how we feel. And we want to have that feel good feelings, and we do that through food or whatever the drug of choice is at that time, where dancing is maybe slightly healthier way, or actually a much, much healthier way
Yes.
to get that. We are changing how we're feeling when we dance.
Mm-hmm.
It's really almost hard to feel bad
Yep.
after a dance or while we are dancing.
Yep.
So it's another way to change how we feel and also release dopamine and endorphins and all those hormones that actually really make us feel good.
Absolutely.
Oh.
And even if you're thinking, I can't dance, it doesn't matter. Just put on a playlist, dance in the dark, or just dance by yourself in your bedroom. It's not how you look, it's how it feels in the body. And yeah, because I know that could be something that someone might be listening and be like, well, dancing's not for me. I'm not very good. It's not a performance.
And nobody's
And
watching probably either.
no,
Close
no.
those windows, curtains, and just go and have fun.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about binge eating, I do find when I talk to clients about the 13 triggers that I've identified that tend to be the reasons for binge eating, one of those is actually also habit. So, which means if we are doing something for a long time and repeat that same behavior over and over again, it does unfortunately turn into a habit, which means it turns into automatic, I guess, behaviors that we do. And quite often it becomes kind of like that pattern and a routine of our day. So we have people who would say, I always binge on a Friday night, or always in the weekend, or I always do that when my kids go to bed and nobody's watching, and now it's me time and I can relax. So it becomes kind of like that pattern and a habit. What was it for you? Like, how did you break that habit, or I guess, what kind of habits did you start implementing to make the changes for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I love habits, and they definitely help me in a big way. So I read the books Atomic Habits by James Clear and Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, which were really amazing. And if you haven't read them, highly suggest.
Love it as well.
Yeah. I focused more on creating healthy habits rather than trying to break unhealthy habits, like in the beginning, because I just devoted more attention to building rather than like breaking them. So I've built habits that I've been doing for years now. The walking in the afternoons, taking supplements in the morning, stretching at night, applying lavender, drinking water when I first wake up, listening to podcasts, and everything. And the question I always ask myself is like, how can I habitify my desired actions? And so something that worked for me is like doing the habits at roughly the same time every day, and having a cue or a reminder to do them if they're new, a calendar reminder, a phone reminder, a post-it, or placing something in the physical environment, whether that's keeping your supplements on the kitchen counter or putting your gym clothes on the floor so that you see them, like creating some visual cue to remind you to do it. And I also found the trick to building habits is to start small and scale up. So for me, I was trying to implement a workout routine in my morning routine for like so many years, and I just wasn't having any luck. I just like, some days I'd do it and then it would be 2 months later and I wouldn't do it. So I was trying to go from 0 workouts to 5 workouts a week, which was just too big of a jump. So using what I'd learned in the books, especially the book Tiny Habits, which is all about starting small. So I started with like a 1-minute workout and did that 5 days a week. And habits is like, after you do a habit, they become unemotional. So it's just something that you do. So the 1 minute, it's too easy not to do. And it involves very, very limited motivation to get you to start doing that. So after I'd done like a minute workout for a few weeks, then I increased that to 5 minutes. And then I kept doing that. And then I increased it to 10 minutes and then 15 minutes. And I'd finally reached 20 minutes after a few months. But the idea is being kind and patient to yourself during that habit development phase, knowing that it will take a few months to build a habit, but it can also serve you for like years to come, if not a lifetime. So that is one way I love to build tiny habits, habits in general. And I also just love to build tiny habits, healthy habits during the day, and like plant them in different places in my routine. And by tiny habits, I mean they're micro little habits that take 15 seconds or less. So for instance, when I turn on the microwave, I do 1 squat. And the idea is the benchmark is so low. It's just one squat. But some days I feel extra energized and I do 5 or 10 squats, which would never have happened if I didn't plan a tiny habit. So you can plant tiny habits throughout your day, whether that's around doing a push-up when you go to the bathroom, or doing a squat here or there, or even taking a sip of water. Some people struggle to like include more water in their diet. So maybe it's like every time you go to the kitchen, you have a glass of water, or you put a glass of water in your bathroom so that you take a few sips when you go to the toilet or whatever. And like another tiny habit I've been playing with is taking a deep breath every time I open my laptop, because deep breathing helps us stress less and relax, and so we don't end up turning to food. So the benchmark is 1 deep breath, but some days, again, I do 5 breaths or I do 10 breaths. So you just plant these tiny habits in your routine, making sure you keep the benchmark very low so that it's doable, it doesn't become overwhelming, and it takes like 10 seconds to do. But then you just let them grow and flourish into bigger plants.
Yes, I love it. Tony Robbins actually talks about concept. He calls it net, no extra time. So means how can I integrate these new habits into my already daily routine? I don't need to do more, right? Because quite often when it comes to habits, people would then really feel overwhelmed. Oh my God, I'm already so busy, and now I have to do more of these things. Where I guess what you're doing is basically what Tony is always teaching: no extra time. I am already waiting at the microwave of that. You know how they always say a microwave minute is always the longest minute?
Yep, it is. It's true.
And so during that time, I know my partner actually, he would do crunches or plank, for example. So usually he lies on the floor and does something there while the microwave is going. Or let's say you're brushing your teeth. You're already there anyway. You are already doing that activity. Might as well integrate some deep diaphragmatic breathing, for example, right? And really breathe into your belly. Or you could have it posted on the mirror and think about, let's say, 5 things that went really great during the day. So practicing gratitude there. Yes, without extra time. I also quite often moms who would say who would tell me how overwhelmed they felt after work going home, because they knew how demanding and busy that time of the day is. And so many, I guess, children want attention, and maybe the partner is there. So everyone wants a lot of, I guess, time and attention from her. And one of the things that we were working on is working on our breath and relaxing and switching into that mode of, okay, now I'm going home, and how can I change my perception from, oh my God, I have to do this, to I get to do this. There are people who really want me and need me and love me, and I get to help and support them and love them as well. So it's kind of like that no extra time. So integrating these little habits into your daily routine that you have already.
Yeah. And another helpful point with habits is, like, I can't remember if it's called linking or what the concept is called. You like glue the habit onto something that you already do consistently. Like you're saying, like, we already shower every day, we already eat breakfast every day, or we already do X, Y, and Z. So adding the habit at that time of your routine. So if you're showering, that's the time that maybe you can do 1 squat before a shower. Or like reading, if you already get into bed 10 minutes early to lie there, that's when you can add reading. Or like deep breathing, you're already sitting down to eat a meal, you could add a breath before you eat. And just like integrating it into your existing like routine really helps just like plant them all in. So if you, like for me, I mapped out my whole week and like wrote everything I did down. And then it's like, okay, now that I can visually see what I'm doing, where in my life can I start adding these habits. Like, where could they go? What's the most optimal place? And if you put them in a certain point of your routine and it doesn't work, it's okay. Try a different spot in the routine, or just keep problem solving. Or if you start with, let's say, 3 push-ups and that feels overwhelming, go back to 1. Keep experimenting and playing with it. Like, just don't give up on the habit. It's just habit optimization. Like, you can do it. Like, habits serve you for a lifetime. It's kind of worth the upfront cost of working out how to create them.
Yes. And really, if something doesn't work, well, change your approach, right? Change your approach. If that doesn't work, change your approach. The question should never be whether or if I should do it, but rather how. How can I make it work? Because there will be challenges. There will be days where we don't want to do something. But again, it's like, okay, what I'm going to do when I don't want it, when I'm not motivated, right? How I'm going to get through it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So habits, I love habits, and I love talking about it. I love the whole concept, and I love understanding how our brain works and why actually habit creation is just the way our brain is wired, because our brain is wired to repeat doing things that we know, because that requires least amount of energy to get things done, and our brain is kind of a little bit lazy there as well. So and if we know how it works and how our brain works, we can work really with it rather than allowing to work against ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So mindset, I can imagine that probably was something that you also had to work through. So we talked about habits, which is obviously, and then really working on, and what it sounds like you're still working on implementing new habits and try different things. So it requires a certain mindset. How does mindset play a role in all of this?
Yeah. I really believe like having an empowered growth mindset is the key to overcoming challenges and, like you're saying, implementing new solutions and just overcoming anything in general. Like, we get to decide how we perceive our eating challenge, or just like the challenge of implementing a new habit, and what we make it mean about us and our lives. And this perception influences our thoughts, influences our feelings and actions, and consequently our results. So if we change our mindset, we're having a big impact on our results and whether or not we implement our habit or not, for instance. So we get to decide whether we view our eating challenges, such as emotional eating or binge eating, or if you're just having a health challenge in general, as opportunities to grow and evolve as people, or as reasons to kind of stay stuck and stagnant in life. And I totally get it. I know it can be difficult to change your mindset. So I'll share from me, a few years ago, before studying at the Institute and really getting into learning, I was approaching my own eating challenges with a fixed mindset and a bit of a victim mentality mindset, by which I mean I was thinking things like, oh, why me? Why do I have to deal with this challenge? I'm not good at healthy eating. I'm such a failure. Like, why didn't anyone teach me about healthy eating? Like, I can't fit any nice clothes anymore. This sucks. And that kind of mentality. I was blaming other people, and I wasn't taking personal responsibility for my health and my life. I was getting triggered by other people's health success. And I was trying to change my body and health from a mindset of hate. Like, I was trying to guilt trip myself into making healthy changes. So for full transparency, I remember I used to write these horrible letters to myself. It was like, dear Charlotte, like, I'm so disappointed in you. You binge ate again. That's disgusting. Fix this problem ASAP. And your body's looking chubby. How could you let this happen? And I was just like, that was the mindset I was trying to solve a problem with. And I was like, why is this not working? And I was seeing like every health slip up and binge episode as like a failure and like further evidence of my incompetence, rather than just seeing it as part of the health journey. But luckily, I got into reading books. For some reason, I started ordering a lot of books on Amazon, and I ordered a few books on mindset, even the book Mindset by Carol Dweck or something. So after reading those books and internalizing that wisdom, things started to shift for me. And I realized that the current mindset I had was holding me back from the life I desired and achieving any health goals I wanted to achieve. So I started to see and relate to health challenges in a whole new way. Rather than seeing my binge and emotional eating as this burden in my life and something that was stopping me from living, I now saw it as an invitation and a doorway into growth and into my next level self. I also started to see it as more of a personal development journey rather than just like a health journey, which made the whole experience a lot more meaningful and purposeful, because everything in our lives is connected to everything else. And I know that we like to compartmentalize things into, well, that's health category, that's wealth category, that's business category, that's this category. But for better or worse, everything is impacting everything else. So if we expand it out to a personal development journey, we can actually achieve more. And I saw it, the mindset now changed to, how can I use this experience as an opportunity to reclaim my personal power, especially from a very masculine dominated dieting and weight loss world. And that was full of all these beauty narratives, which we kind of touched on in the start. And I saw it as an opportunity to let go of limiting beliefs, shed old identities, redefine what beauty means to me, redefine what health means to me, and take a look at everything that was going on in my life that was no longer serving me, rather than just this minor health piece. And I adopted a growth mindset, which is so key, because we get to realize that everything is learnable. Like, you can learn how to eat healthy. You can learn how to nourish yourself. You can learn how to love your body. And that's so empowering, just the belief that you can learn anything. So if you're sitting there right now and it's like, oh, well, no one taught me how to be healthy. My parents didn't pass on this health information. Like, I'm like, that doomed fixed mindset. It's just take a step back and realize that even no matter how old you are right now, even if you're 50, 60, 70, you still have the power to change, because we are amazing human beings with the capacity to always learn no matter what age we are. So I took radical responsibility for my health and life choices. I looked at other people's health success now as a possibility portal and something to aspire to, rather than something to become envious about. I started experimenting with different health strategies, like the tiny habits, like I was saying, from this place of curiosity. Oh, let's see what happens. Let's see how I go with it, rather than approaching it with a judgment, like, oh, if it doesn't work, I'm a failure. No, it's just a learning. Everything's a learning feedback. Yeah. Anyway, to summarize all that, yes, mindset does have a profound impact on whether we overcome our eating challenges or not. Because it's often, like you said at the start, it's our mind that shifts first before our body shifts. Because in our mind, things can happen at lightning speed, whereas our body is in the physical 3D world, and it takes a little bit longer for things to kind of change. And I know many people, they become very fixated on losing weight, which was me. And they think like, well, if I lose weight, then I will experience happiness, joy, pleasure. I will be fulfilled in life. And which is ironic, because it doesn't happen like that. Because unless you change your mindset along the weight loss journey, you will get to a skinnier body, but still have the mindset of like hate and self-loathing, which is exactly what happened to me. So a part of this wider weight loss journey, it needs to encompass both losing weight from your body and also losing weight from your mind, which is the outdated stories, the shame, the guilt, all of that. You need to shed kilos in both areas. And maybe more importantly is changing the mindset.
And also, I really love what you said. There's so many points there. To understand that binge eating or any sort of messages from our body are actually messages that there is something to look into. It is an opportunity for us to look into our soul, into our life, into purpose, into where am I living out of alignment with myself? Where am I saying yes to where I want to say no to? What is really happening? Because I really strongly believe, and it's a saying that I keep saying, I don't think we have food or body problems. I think we have a life problem.
Yes.
And when we see it as actually it's a life, so there are other things in our life that are leading us to, I guess, then overeat or drink or do other things that are harming us. Let me just have a look. What is really happening? Where is the trigger? Can I go right back and take that focus away from the actual binge eating or binge drinking or whatever we are doing to what is causing that? Where is this coming from? Why am I behaving that way? What does food represent to me in that moment? And I know for me, my story was to a certain degree similar to yours. When I was struggling with binge eating and could really, really not stop eating at times, and stop eating particularly sugary food, for me, I actually reversed all of that. And the first things that I started looking into was asking myself, what does food represent to me? What does food mean to me? When do I eat that food? What do I really want? What do I desire instead of food? Because it's not the food that I really want, it's a certain feeling. And I was just stuck in that cycle, basically. And yeah, so that's why I guess I was really, when I was talking to you the first time, and I really realized the way you see things is very similar, is very aligned with what I believe about binge eating. And I really don't see binge eating as a problem. It's just an opportunity to look, to learn, and it's basically just a message from our life, our body, our soul, our heart, that, hey, I need your attention. I need you to look what's really happening, what's going on there.
Yep, absolutely. Like our health challenges and crises, or whatever you want to call them, they're like that wake-up call, right? Like if you aren't able to take action through like the minor symptoms, it's going to keep presenting bigger and bigger symptoms until it's like, okay, I'll take action. And like you were saying, it's an opportunity to start reevaluating our lives and getting more into alignment with what our true heart's desires are, which is a great gift. Like I see eating challenges as a gift rather than as something we should wish away. Like before you start wishing it away, like take stock of what is it here to teach us, which is the next point of like why I believe there's a deeper reason for them. And whether that reason is simply just to start realigning with our life, or whether it's that you're not acting on your heart's desires, which for me, a reason for binge eating was because I was lacking love and connection. And food is such an quick and easy way to get love and connection. Like getting out there, dating, meeting new, that's harder than just reaching for a packet of biscuits. But that heart's desire is not going away. And food and binge eating will just become a placeholder until you're ready to take action and start really living in alignment. So you're going to keep having the same patterns until you make different choices, until you really look at like, okay, what is the reason? Like you're saying, what is the trigger? Is this about love? Is this that I'm in an unfulfilling career that sucks my soul, and therefore the only pleasure is going home and eating like whatever I want and binge watching Netflix because my 8 hours during the day sucks or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of my TED talk that I did. And what I said there, I said food was my lover, was my psychologist, was my friend. It was everything to me because it didn't reject me. It was always there for me. It was easy. It was available, right? At any really, if I wanted to, 24/7. Petrol stations are open. There are some supermarkets that are open. It's always there. And sometimes really, much easier to reach. And for me, it was really at that time, like you, when I was lonely and alone. And unfortunately, because because of what was happening, I withdrew even more from my dance community, from all my hobbies, from my friends. So I was even lonelier. But because I was lonely, I was reaching for food and gaining weight, and all of that was happening. And it was really that vicious cycle. And it requires strength to get to a point where you say, that's it. I need to do something about it.
Absolutely. But it's also fun to start looking at your desires. Like it can be a fun experience. Like a lot of us, we grow up and then we forget about our desires and our dreams. So it's like we get to bring them back up to the surface. Like, what am I really hungry for? It's like, am I hungry for friendship? Am I hungry for a purposeful career? Am I hungry for, I don't know, a new house, whatever you're hungry for? And just like, yeah, it's just a fun opportunity. It's the best way I can describe it.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm still very grateful actually for all these struggles that I had, because that's what has given me a set purpose in my life. That's what's started Unlox'U. Back then it was a completely different name, but that's what started everything. That's what started my journey, when I promised myself, when I get better, I want to help other people to do the same, because I know I was suffering by myself, alone, lonely, didn't share it with anyone. I was carrying so much shame and guilt on my shoulders, and I didn't want that for other people. So me, and I can imagine for you, was probably something similar.
Yep, exactly the same. And yeah, like you touched on, it feels lonely because like when we try and explain to our friends and families, they might not get it. They don't really, unless they've had a similar eating challenge themselves, they're listening, but they're not really understanding, which causes us to then go into like hiding and not want to talk about it. So yes, I see like coaching as like, you're that trusted friend. You get to be that friend that's there for them. They can share whatever's going on with them. All feelings, all emotions are welcome. And just like bringing the eating challenge into the light, because that's what dissolves shame. Like when we're in shame, we want to go into hiding. We don't want to talk about it. But as we start talking about it, as we start acknowledging that, yes, I do have a challenge or a disorder, then we can start, moving forward towards the light.
Yes, absolutely. And here we are.
Yes. Here we are.
Here we are, supporting, helping other people, being on the other side, and really hope. I really hope, and that's why I share my personal story as well, giving other people hope, and really, I guess, trust that, hey, you can get over this. Really, it's not a matter. It's not a question of if. It's really about just get started, reach out. There are people who know how to help and how to support, and really, like what Charlotte said, it's a privilege to support people as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here, for sharing openly and vulnerably about your personal journey, and giving so many amazing tips as well. And I'm sure that a lot of people will really take a lot from your tips and can really apply them in their lives as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, even just one person listens to this and changes their life, that's enough, and that's amazing.
Right. And then we've done our job.
Yes.